All right, welcome to BCB Live. We're the safest station in the nation. We got some breaking news. Drive safe, Dave. Jump on in it and talk to us about it.
Boris Johnson's resignation out in as Prime Minister in England, and pretty interesting.
Well, this morning his name started off as Boris Yeltsin, and I was like, "Who are you talking?"
He Boris I knew.
He looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, "Yeltsin, you don't know what's going on." I said, "I don't know that name."
Well, last night when I was
from
watching
Russia? And then he goes a Canadian. I'm like, what?
We got a Canadian on today. It's like, is there a difference? And then we have a Canadian on today as an interview. But good stuff though. But yeah, I saw that. Big upheaval in the political climate going on.
Man, so what is going on with that drive safe, Dave? What's the word on the street with that resignation? Why?
Well, Well, first of all, he had a couple of weeks ago, they had a vote of no confidence in it, and he made it through that vote of no confidence. Yep. But then all of a sudden, he appointed somebody. I can't remember the name. He appointed a part. Well, you remember the name, producer? He appointed a guy that had sexual assault charges and allegations filed against him to hold a post. And he immediately fired him, but still it resonated deeply within the Congress. He had like 35 people resign under his rule, and basically gave him no authority to get anything done. It left him no choice.
Sounds a little bit like Trump towards the end of his tenure.
And
there.
No one was storming the Capitol.
But we do have this. We have our sister company live on the street right now. Let me see if I can get them. Hey, Mighty, can you hear me, Mighty? What you hear down there outside of 10 on Downing Street? Technical difficulties. We do have... hey, Mighty, I can't hear you. Yes.
He's doing it in sign if you
We
can't
got it over here. He's out of here, so we can't hear him. But that was our sister company, the BBC, very close to the BCB. Drive safe.
Is it? The BBC, close to the BCB. I like
you know
that.
what? It's all intertwined. Depends how you looked at that. But we are growing. Our network continues to grow as the BBC.
Reach across the pond.
We reach across the pond for sure. Drive safe, Dave. Hey, let's talk rough road ahead. What are we seeing when we see that sign, Dave?
If ever you see this sign out there, it basically demonstrates or tells you to slow down, be prepared to a change in the road pattern as it is. It will also cause won't be as safe to drive. It may not allow you to stick to the road as easily as it did before. Just these caution signs are out there for you to slow down and be better prepared so that when you enter them, you don't run into big problems.
Rough roads.
Rarely does it say speed up.
I would agree with that. If it is, it's a racetrack perhaps, something like that. Hey, speaking of rough roads ahead from a funeral lady up in Colorado.
This is like 10 years in the making. I mean.
Yeah, you know what? She's accused of stealing bar. And here's my thing. I mean, at what point does this not become suspicious? When you go see Grandpa, you go see your friend that passed away, and you look at him. I thought he passed away from the flu, and he's missing a couple arms like that. Well, at what point do you not say, you know what? There's something fishy going on here.
Yeah, I was sitting here looking at this, and not only, and it was several instances of where they gave other people's ashes to the families, and I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. How
would that really bother you?
You know what? I
don't know if it'd bother me.
It'd bother some people.
I think you're nitpicky now. The fact that it's somebody. I think you're being a little hard on her. Now here's the deal.
So Dad was sold off. We're not sure where he ended up, but he was sold off somewhere.
He's in a good home.
An experiment.
He's in a good home somewhere. But they are. She was taking especially people with like infectious disease, right? Taking that, and you may come to me, Dave, and say, you know what, I want to have him cremated. And I'm like, we know what, you got it. She's looking up at the teeth. She's taking the gold out. Do you see that too? She's taking the teeth out of people to extract that gold. She's selling those body parts because, at this point, maybe you have COVID or maybe you have something that's worth value to the scientists, shipping them off over there to them.
So where do you stand on this? Are you big on recycle? Are you not big on recycle? I'm just saying.
Here's my all right. I'm going to tell you my biggest issue with this whole thing.
Don't share in the profit.
No, it's this right here. So here it is. I'm going to read you the headline here. Colorado funeral home operator who was accused of selling and stealing parts pled guilty, Dave, to mail fraud. I'm thinking, you know what? I mean, she's stealing bodies. I mean, she's doing all this, and we get her on mail fraud.
First of all,
Dave, that's
federal charges hold a little bit more weight. I'm just saying.
Come on.
Capone got charged. Capone went to prison for life for lying on his taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, these federal charges hold weight, especially when they're stacked on one right after the other.
Okay, says he that thinks Boris's last name's Yeltsin.
Okay, really? Am I going to live that moment
That
down?
will be
Seriously.
forever what you're known as, the guy that said Yeltsin.
Johnson. Either way, they're both gone. Neither one are in power.
All right. What do you think about that Army pilot that landed up on the mountain, like 6-foot ledge right there, landed a Black Hawk?
Show this
That's
skill
pretty impressive on that. So here it is, Knife's Edge River to save an injured hiker. And this is pretty impressive. Here, look at this, drive safe, Dave.
Yeah, it's easy.
So can I...
It's easy.
If I'm the pilot, I'm like, yep, it's a whiteout. I don't see anybody. Carry on.
Not even those orange dudes. Not even the dudes running around with an orange.
I don't think I'm landing that on that. That's very impressive on that. And you know what? Kudos. It shows the bravery of these pilots, right?
Unbelievable. Skill set is there, and not only that, they've got nerves of steel. I mean, to turn the engines off too. I mean,
yeah. Well,
so everybody starts loading up and it starts weight shifting. Like, all right, all you guys start getting in. No.
I'm not sure why we're not hovering at that point either. Why aren't we sending people down in ropes to get the people?
I think it has a lot to do with how thin the air is up there.
Jesus. What? Where'd you read that from? Did you read that?
Helicopters also have a.
Is it true?
Yes. At higher altitudes.
Did you read it or did you know it?
I did know it. Yes.
How do you know? You know what? You said it's true yesterday or 2 days ago to him when he said some other number that was so false. How old the U.S. was. Yes, he's right.
Okay,
he's not.
It's physics. As you get closer to the sea level, the air gets thicker as you get away from sea level.
Fact checkers out there, do me a favor, check it. He's got the producer that agreed way too quick as well. So trying to see if that's why indeed he did land that on there.
I thought everybody knew that. I thought it was everybody just knew that about.
I don't know. I don't even know where this place is.
It's just but it's a cool picture.
All right, Dave. And
all right, let's talk.
Let's talk about the other article we have here, and that's the meat. These farms. The amount of greenhouse gas effect that it has on the.
I wasn't real sure why I get the story, but we're just gonna. What are we saying?
I don't know.
Did you read the story? I looked at it.
I gave it the old college try.
I was like,
what are we asking now? We're gonna not produce fuel. Let's not kill anything. Let's not kill any animals.
Grow cows.
Yes, we eat 43% more than everybody else. Well, they don't know what they're missing out on.
And don't use tractors to farm the equipment. Don't use farm equipment to go out there and harvest. Are we back to the oxen and the? All
I got to say is that you can tell that we have an under 21, 22-year age people producing our information for us right there. Because that's only concern to them. They're not overweight. They don't appreciate the good meats in life. You know what? Leave it alone. You know what? And go get me some regular gasoline. Take the catalytic converter off, and let's just roll with it.
Leaded gasoline. Wow, there's a statement. Let's go back. Let's just all run red diesel. Let's just put red diesel in the truck.
All right. Hey, so we have Josh Hannaberry back on again. Breaking news with him as well, Dave. And we're going to let him talk through the story here. We're going to be right back. And obviously, this show is brought to you by
Utility Pro, and you can get your Utility Pro wear anywhere, but you need to get it at utilityproware.com. Put in BCB20 for a 20% discount. Let's do it today, and you can wear some cool, bright, significant ANSI certified.
Hey, before we go away, Utility Pro Wear, big shout out to you. I ordered some of these right here. I was traveling yesterday, going down the road, construction worker out there, had no visibility on, nothing. He had none of this stuff on. He had a mask on that was camouflage, and that was the only thing he had, and nothing else.
No ANSI.
I gave him a one of these masks here so he could be seen. I saved a life. You save your life. Go to the website, BCB20. Do me a favor. Put it in there. Save 20%. You know what? You're going to go to the fuel. You're going to spend a lot of money. I'm trying to save you money.
Right.
Right here on BCB Live. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
This segment has been brought to you by Utility Pro Wear. Utility Pro Wear manufactures high-quality, ANSI-certified, high-visibility apparel for both men and women. Infused with the Teflon fabric protector, Utility Pro Wear gives you the added benefit of providing a barrier to liquids, dirt, and grime, keeping you cleaner longer, brighter longer, and therefore safer longer. Get your high visibility apparel by going to utilityprowear.com. Use the code BCB20 at checkout for an exclusive discount.
All right, and we're back at BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. We have Drive Safe Dave, and up here next to us, the good-looking one, Mr. Josh Hannaberry. Josh, what's going on, buddy?
How are you guys?
What's up, eh?
Oh, man. Hey, yeah, huge shout-out to Utility Pro. We're a great group there. That was awesome. And, man, your guys' show is rocking. It's awesome to really see, and I'm super excited to be back, to be involved, and, yeah, thanks so much.
Well, and you know what? We've been doing this for a little while, but all of a sudden, a couple weeks ago, you took the big step. I'm talking about you took the Nestle plunge. You went all in. Talk to us about it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're just over 2 weeks in full time. So my company, Pivotal Transportation Industry Solutions, more known as Truck Focus Podcast. Good things are happening, man. There's a lot of people that just need guidance that our industry leaders are providing, and yeah, I'm really excited to be in this space full time.
When you talk guidance, let's just jump into it. What kind of guidance are you out there giving today?
Well, stinging lessons. No, I'm just kidding. So a little bit of my backstory is more so just where I've always received help. I'm like, hey, our industry needs that. There's just so much to know. A lot of people have lots of questions that maybe seem technical, get lost in the weeds, whatever. So I'm really bringing to the forefront just phenomenal industry leaders that are able to give specific advice, to give actual solution to make our industry a better place.
Yeah, you know what? It is kind of neat. In our industry, it's a unique industry because, you know, it's really, there's so much networking that happens. And, you know, to a person in this industry, there's not many people or businesses that really won't jump in and help somebody else. You know, we're just, you know, it's really about being successful. And for you, think about those connections you have now through your podcast about connecting people to help others as well become successful in issues that they may be having.
That's right. Yeah, when you ask enough people what's their biggest pain points, a lot of people say the same thing. They may say it a little differently, but regardless, they're fighting a very similar battle. So yeah, there's some good opportunities for sure, and there's lots of people to help, and yeah, I'm really excited.
You know, as you work to get the information out, I think that's one of the most difficult things that we have in this industry. We're slow to change. And getting the information and valuing that change is available. Who are some people that you've had on lately that have helped you and to learn from lately that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, it's my buddy Sven, actually, who's a professional heavy haul operator. He works for a great carrier here in Canada. They cross borders, Bowline Logistics. So I think one of the number one concerns that I repetitively hear from professional drivers is pressure. And there's pressure to service customers, get there faster, and all those good things, where he did this breakdown, man, of how do you communicate with a customer? How do you provide just the best customer service possible while still operating safely? And he went in to talk about, like, you under-promise, over-deliver. You show up, he started going through just like the step-by-steps he takes when he's on site. And that was a really powerful message. And then another buddy of mine, Andrew, he's in the insurance space, was really talking on just the importance of communication when you're navigating risk. So those two really stood out because people need to hear that type of a message. It is possible to operate safely, especially when you're hauling something that's 16 feet wide, 18 feet tall. It's a big, awkward box type stuff. So it was really powerful.
Hey, when it comes to the values of your company here at BCB Live, it's be safe, communicate, and if you can, be on time. Really, it's the value of life. Hey, what are some of the values that your company has?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big believer in the mindset where we have to lead with empathy over tyranny. And I always say, put your whip away. Let's get down to the people level. And I'm a really big believer in impacting the industry through compliance and training. And compliance doesn't just have to be a regulation. It can be company policy. It can be best practices with personality. But yeah, spending a lot of time just, again, what does industry need? How do you create that change? How do you understand what's required? And then, yeah, really diving into the training components of that.
How are you finding that? Okay, go ahead. I was going to say, how are you finding the people to bring that message forward? Are they coming to you, or are you going to them, or is it kind of coming together through LinkedIn and stuff like that?
Yeah, so to start, some of the best advice that I received was, you're going to be hitting the ground, you're going to be knocking on doors, you're going to hear a lot of, who are you? What's this about? So I definitely experienced that. You got to push through. Podcast fade is real. Networking fade is real. Once you kind of hit a certain point, though, where you have a friend of a friend and you're willing to say, hey, do you know anyone else that may be interested? That's when things started to really change, where now it's a mixture of both. I'm super grateful for the industry leaders that have stepped up, joined the platform. It's awesome. And for those that are, I have messages coming in saying, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this. Is this an opportunity? As well as I have I call it my hit list, in the sense of, okay, I see that you're creating an impact, let's get you on. And that's from professional drivers, operational, obviously ownerships of companies. But yeah, I'm starting to see both, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, when you have Drive Safe Dave, I just want to make sure when you see him out, everybody knows who he is. I want you to make sure you ground yourself. It takes a little while to get there. It doesn't happen overnight. And when he walks in, everyone knows who Drive Safe is.
You know what? After a few autographs, you sign a few, you feel a whole lot better about it. Hey, look, as we continue to talk about this, and these people come in, how are you? Not only just passing that through for the podcast, but I really want to know your feedback. Like obviously you're sending out these messages, and with these people coming back and continue to communicate with you, obviously the feedback is genuinely positive, right?
Yes. Yeah, and before I was going to say, how's your hand cramp from signing too many autographs?
It's a gift. It's some call it a curse. I call it a gift.
I think the positive side is huge. I think when you can have a good conversation with someone from introduction call, obviously you engage with them, maybe it's consulting, maybe it's through the podcast, and throughout the exit date or your end date hits, and it's a consistent positive message, it impacts people and it makes people feel valued. You can use these platforms to complement, uplift, to encourage. And I think right now we just went through one of the darkest times in my life, for sure, when we're thinking about a pandemic. You're thinking about everything price-wise is rising like crazy, shortages of this. It's like, okay, how do you be the change? You literally have to be the change, and you can do that just by being uplifting, encouraging, empathetic, but be really reassuring. I think that's really important.
Yeah, for certain on that. Hey, Josh, is this a north of the border kind of thing? Are you only helping people north of the border? Or are you going to this side of the border as well?
Hey, we're down here.
I got to see you through the snow globe. Oh, my goodness. We are North America wide. We can work with organizations both sides of the border. And I have a really strong network that I'm super grateful to refer to. So I know my limitations. I'm not afraid to say that. So if people are reaching out and they have big questions, okay, let's put you in contact with the right people. If it couldn't be myself, for sure.
Hey, I got some notes here that I wanted to ask you about. Tell me more about this course creation aspect. I don't know what this is. Can you enlighten me on what it is?
Hey, start with the definition of that, because that's what he told me. Because I don't even know what this means.
I got a note on my sheet. I was like, what is this? What is this? Tell me what it is and what it means and how it's what it is. Let's just talk about what it is. I can't even ask a good question.
I'm already on my second cup of coffee, so I'm right there with you. So when we're thinking about course creation, how often have you heard the term or the situation breakdown? A professional driver gets hired, they're given the keys and say, don't crash. Course creation is building onboarding programs, orientation programs that really work with organizations, fleets, professional drivers to help identify risks. So what risks are in your organization that people need to be aware of? But then you're actually training to that. Even though the risk may still exist, people are competent in that space. You train, you prove competency. So again, my network of just phenomenal leaders that are geniuses in this space, we're able to really dive into an organization and say, okay, so you're a heavy haul, you're hauling super Bs of lumber, you're hauling crude oil, whatever it is. Then we build programs based off of their needs to help eliminate the risks, mitigate risks, but also it's a retention tool. So when a company is willing to invest time, energy, money into people, people are more willing to stay or at least thrive in their environments while they're there instead of being, okay, am I going to crash? Am I going to kill someone? What's going on here? That I hear way too often from those scenarios that I explained up front.
So I'm gonna kind of go off script here, but because what I see a little bit in the companies that I speak with, it's not necessarily on that driver side, right? It's more on the, say, the operation side, the company side, maybe even ownership side of the business, that the priority, although it could be safety, right? We say safety, but how come all we talk about is service? How come all we talk about is who's running late? How come all we talk about is why is he or she only have this amount of miles? And so for a dispatcher, an operations manager, and even on the VP level or anybody in the office, a customer service person, they can't, if you're really about safety, well, somehow they've got to see it through the safety eyes first, which means the company has got to spend a lot more time than I think we really think we do on safety. I think that on the outside, it's easy to say, my God, we've got to be open to this, but we're not getting the 45 other phone calls from the drivers asking about miles, asking about this. Is that load going to be late? Are we going to have this? All those other pressures. What do you hear the same thing up there? Because I think that's a balance that really needs to get addressed.
Agreed. Yeah, and I do all the time. And that's why Sven, the professional driver at Bowline, his breakdown was so powerful, because you're really empowering the professional to make the decisions, to get there safely, to communicate with the customer, hit targets, but doing so without lying to them and without feeling like you need to cheat a logbook or go 30, 40 kilometers over the speed limit, or miles for you crazy folks down south. No, I'm just kidding. But I think a big part of that, though, is awareness. And you bring a new customer on, super exciting. Where are they? Do you actually know what it takes to get from point A to point B? Or are you just looking at a Google map saying, oh, it's a perfectly sunny day, there's no construction, there's no this. So I think this awareness and investing more time into being into the field instead of just sitting behind a desk is also super empowering.
Josh, you mentioned earlier, and you were talking about heavy haul, and you were talking about hauling oil or tankers and stuff like that. I was listening to that, and to me, the message that you're talking about and bringing to these companies, that applies to just about every single business out there in this industry, whether you're running local delivery and dealing with heavy traffic within metropolitan areas, or you're looking at short haul across regional areas and running pups or boxes or reefers. It really, to me, it genuinely doesn't matter when we're talking the aspect of safety of being out there on the road and dealing with the same pressures. Right? It doesn't matter if you've got 22 deliveries today, you're still under the same pressures as the guy that's got to make a 500-mile delivery by tomorrow morning in a heavy rainstorm. We're all dealing with some of the mindsets and these pressures. How are you communicating these? I loved it that you had the owner-operator on and communicating. Are you going to the drivers and helping to facilitate those messages?
Absolutely. Yeah. So to hit on that, if you're used to driving 500 miles through a rainstorm and then you're asked the next day to do 22 deliveries in heavy duty traffic, you go nuts. Like, it's just, you have to train to that. You have to be prepared for that. So yeah, absolutely. When I like being a sponge and then a funnel, so I can redirect attention. So when I'm given really good guidance, we get to brag that out. So if it's in safety meetings directly to fleets and we're talking about taking a breath, giving yourself credit for what you're really good at. If it's talking specifics on speed management, fuel idling, or fuel control, it's kind of the same thing, and I can really rely on the stories of the professionals that I speak to say it's not me all the time. I'd rather tell a story and uplift the professional doing it right to help shift culture than say, oh yeah, I've done that for 30 years. Of course I know what I'm talking about when I'm only 35. It doesn't really jive. So I think there's a more opportunity to really share truth. Okay, what are professionals doing? How are they doing it safely? What have they tried that's working? Okay, let's try it in this environment. And peer-to-peer coaching is really big too.
As we talk about it, and Rick was alluding to this, and he was discussing it with ownership and going to it, and I hear that you're going into these businesses. When is at what point I feel like here at BCB Live we look at safety in a different light. It is first and foremost. In fact, we look through that lens every day. How is the reality?
But you know what? But we do that, and Josh, I believe that you're probably looking through that, and I think a lot of us on the, let's just say, the outside right now are looking at it, and we're doing all we can, we feel like, to make a difference. And Josh, I'm going to go into your business because I think it's vitally important. We've got to teach these companies to do something different. You know, I know you say you're safety, and I think that's the first step, right? It's saying that we are a safety company. But Josh, you know, my passion really is about safety. But when you go back, and again, I'm going to go back to metrics. Most companies' metrics are miles per driver. They're based on how many drivers are you dispatching, and some companies will brag on the 50, 60, 70 they're doing. And I'm saying, and I just think sometimes, well, if you're doing 50, 60, how are you really involved with the safety of that driver, or who is, and maybe how they're doing it's different, Josh. When you know, one thing I think we all got to do is somehow talk to these companies, collaborate together, and say, you know what are ways that what are successful safety companies doing? Because a lot of safety companies or companies that are safe, they tend, in my mind as well, not just my mind, in P&L statements, they tend to run better numbers as well. Operationally, you take the Heartlands, for example, they've always been known for having one of the best operating ratios, and they're a safe company. Josh, I mean, we have our work cut out for us, and you know, we've been doing it for a while, and I feel like we've made some good gains, but Josh, what do we do to actually make a difference in how our dispatching teams, how our companies really look at safety?
Honestly, I think one of the crucial pieces that I often hear is not part of the conversation. So if it's in a conversation, you're listening to what they're talking about, you're paying attention to what they're not saying, and it's the human factor. And when you have this instant level of hierarchy where dispatch controls what a professional driver does, and that's the hierarchy, instead of leveling the playing field and saying, okay, we're all human, I'm going to treat you with some empathy, I'm going to listen to what you're going through, that's when best practices, in my opinion and experience, really do work. If it's understanding the law, being empathetic in your training approaches and your communication, instead of yelling at someone on the phone, I don't care that there's an avalanche that just happened and closed down the pass, get through it, to understand, okay, you know what, is there a safe place to pull over to shut down? I'll notify our customers. You do that once, and if you have a group of 5 drivers to 100 drivers to 1,000 drivers, they communicate. And that one driver is going to become a champion because they're going to say, you know what, yeah, you're right, they actually do care. It's not just a poster on the wall that they hope I look at every time I happen to go to the bathroom when I'm here every 6 weeks. So really focusing on the human element and then coaching each other about what you're actually going through, because not everything is quote unquote preventable. Things happen, we make human error, but a lot of the cultural changes that are required to actually have a safe organization, it comes down to how we treat each other. I'm a massive believer of that.
Yeah, right with you on that. And yeah, you know, boy, I'm going to go back to it, Josh. I'm telling you, what you're doing out there, it's a big job. You have a lot of doors to knock on. I'm going to encourage you to keep knocking on those doors. You know what? You're gonna hear things, and I'm just, again, we've been there with you. Is that I'm going to encourage you to stay strong, stay focused on what you're doing. Train. It's one at a time. It's a company at a time. the culture of safety is something we've got to do. Are you seeing up in Canada? Let's just talk the difference in there. What are you seeing as far as those nuclear verdicts? Again, we talked a little bit about that last time you're on the show. Has things changed with nuclear verdicts up in Canada versus, say, 6 months ago?
It's interesting. I was actually in a conversation about this yesterday, and publicly, I believe I've only seen 2. So instead of the nuclear verdict, it's the skyrocketing in rates. And when you can't explain, so the relationship with an insurance broker to a carrier, an organization, is so crucial to share that story to the insurance company. And there's not very many insurance companies up here in Canada. So when you're really avoidant of just requirements based off of your relationship with your broker, not much you can do. So from a nuclear standpoint, I've only publicly seen like 2, but from a non-compliance, which results in refusal of coverage and or your rates are just astronomical, that's still an unfortunate trend that we're seeing. And one of the number one excuses that I'm continuously hearing in these conversations is, I didn't know I needed to know that. I didn't know I needed to do that. So I think a lot of times it's not ignorance is bliss. It's more so, okay, it's costing you your company. Really, you're getting shut down because you can't afford your insurance rates. I'm seeing more of that.
Gotcha. Any outward, inward-facing cameras, are those mandated in Canada, or are they still kind of optional at this point?
They're still optional, but I highly, highly recommend that fleets, more and more conversations needs to happen around the benefits of protection. It's not Big Brother, it is protection, covering your butts and saying, you know what, things are happening right in front of us that if it's a passenger van accusing, okay, well, you have a stigma against your professional driver where if the camera can show you exactly what happened, and if that's forward facing or saying, hey, you know what, he was driving and he was texting. It's like, well, I have a camera looking right at him and there's no phone in his hand anywhere. So there's a massive protection opportunity there that's definitely needed, but it's not mandated quite yet.
There's a lot of conversation on the Hill right now in the United States with speed limiters. I'm just curious, is that same conversation going on in your country at this moment?
So when you go to the eastern side, so I'm in the west, if you go to the east, there's a province called Ontario that does have 105, so 55-mile speed limiter already in place. I haven't seen anything being pushed too hard anywhere else. Part of it, I think, is you get to the prairies, it's really flat. You get to the mountains, there's mountains. So I think provincially everyone's having different opinions of the matter, but in Ontario it does exist already. But there's a test going on certain major highways right now to see if it's going to get bumped up to 110, which I believe is 78 or 68 in miles.
Wow. Hey, we're running out of time here. I do have one more question for you. So it's going to be 104, 105, 150 here today. Hey, what are you looking like up there?
Well, I gotta have to scrape my window to get the ice. No, I'm just kidding. It's 18 my temperature, and today doesn't look like it's gonna rain. But this has been a crazy rainy summer so far, so it's been super humid and wet.
Well, I'm gonna go 63. I'm gonna go 63 degrees my temperature. Is that about right?
About that, yeah.
Oh, nice.
75. I'm telling you, you got to check this guy all the time. He came quick. I knew he was wrong because it's about 75.
Right? You
it's
double
about
it,
75.
Is that how you basically do it?
I don't know. Whatever you did, it was wrong, though. That's what I got to say. Hey, Josh, we want to thank you for being on BCB Live. We're the safest station in the nation, and I want you to end this show. And, Josh, you've been on the show before, so you know how to end it. Do it for us.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you so much for having me back. So I'm Josh Hannenbury with Pivotal Transportation Industry Solutions. You're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
All right. Hey, Josh, we appreciate you. Stay warm up there and stay safe. And let me tell you something. From my heart, I appreciate all you're doing up there.
Appreciate it. Same here, guys.
Thanks,
crushing
Josh.
It. Awesome to see you.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Drive safe, Dave. Just always good to have somebody else on here. Culture within a company. I think the subject's going to come up more than we've seen before, because when it's a safety culture, I think it's easy to say that we have a safety culture. But I do think this is that safety culture today, most companies by default are so much safer than they were 10 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's easy to think. So go with me, but I just think it's easy to say today that we have a safety culture, because look at how we've improved. Well, I just think so many companies have improved. And what we have to realize today is that to make that next jump, you really do have to take a hard, deep look at your company. If in fact your dispatchers don't have time to talk to drivers about how they're driving out there, do you really have a safety culture, or are you still being safe by accident? Are you looking at proactive ways to make your drivers more? Are you training your drivers? Are you are you just talking to them? The people that are talking to them, do they know what they're talking about? That's, to me, is where that safety culture is going to take the next step. And I think best practices on companies that do it best, I think they have people in place that are taking a look at those items and maybe even placing safety conversations over the on-time service, miles, pay, and all that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think not only how we look at it, how we incentivize, how we consider safety inside the company. If you value the number of safe miles over the number of miles driven, then and you do things like that, and you incentivize more and more on safe miles, I think you're starting to send the right message. I think, when those types of messages are brought out, and also when you talk about conversations, what to listen for and how to react accordingly, and not put the unneeded pressures and stuff like that.
There's a lot of pressure, Dave,
all the way
on
across.
The dispatcher.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know we talk about the driver, and for the drivers, you're like, well, listen, we know it. But you tend to be probably the least of the issue, because you know when to stop. You know how you feel. You're in control of your vehicle. That dispatcher, when they hear you cry out for help,
yep. How do they react?
How do they react to that? Do they hear your cry?
Absolutely.
Are they there to support you, man? Or do they just they don't want to hear it because that's going to create more work. It's going to maybe create me getting in trouble. What do you mean he's tired? He had 12 or she had 12 hours of sleep. To be a dispatcher in today's environment, to be a driver manager, in my mind, in today's environment, means you've got to take you got to realize that the responsibility you have is for your drivers first. It's for you're a driver manager. Your job is to make sure your drivers get to where they need to safely. That's your only function that you really should have. What about the profits? What about the on time? What about the company's best things? You know what? Is there anything more important than safety? That's all I'm saying. If we say that, then why would a driver, a dispatcher, whatever we call them, why would they place anything else above that?
Yeah, and there's terminology that we use in everyday language here in the trucking industry, and I'll tell you from past experiences, and I've used it in my own vocabulary. Things like a hot load.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? I mean, seriously, how do we generate that across a conversation without implying that you need to be in a hurry?
Yep.
I mean, doesn't it, when you just mention the word hot load, don't you have to demonstrate immediately that a sense of urgency, and also that you need to be in a hurry to get it done?
Yeah. Hey, hold on a second. I know that we're pushing time here. Double check. Is there anything other than it's hot you're going to talk about today?
What's that?
Is there anything other than it's hot you're going to talk about on the weather?
No, not really.
Okay. We'll go back to that in just a second. Hey, I'll do his segment. It's hot. Drink water. Make sure that you're doing that. Do a pre-trip. Make sure that your tires are good.
Yeah.
You know what? If you're running retreads, take a look at those caps, right?
Absolutely.
Little things like that to make sure that you're ready for this. Make sure you have water in your truck, for yourself.
Correct.
Or possibly the truck. Both of them get thirsty sometimes during the heat, right?
They do.
And make sure you're ready to go for that. We're going to take like 2 more minutes before we bring double check to talk about safety in here. But Dave, I want to stick to the subjects in here because there is a lot of pressure on dispatchers.
Agreed.
I want us to recognize this. But there's also pressure on the, and I call it self-induced pressure, that maybe a veteran driver, more so probably than a younger driver, has on how they drive a truck. The automatics. It's taking the old trucker out of the truck. Automatics, the cameras, the in-cab coaching. Now you're going to tell me that I'm following too close? Dave, what are your thoughts about that? All of the and you have report cards now, right, on the drivers based on how they're driving. You have other companies out there that also measure their tickets and they take all of that in Ideal. I can't think of the name of the company right now. They take all of this data as well, and they measure another measurement for how safe a driver is. Dave, to a driver, you've been there.
Yeah.
What do we have to do to take that pride away from you?
You know, I'll tell you, and I'll go back from experience on how let's just start with the implementation of the ELD. How resistant we were to the implementation of the ELD, and how I truly believe it's made this industry 100% safer out there on the road. At first it was everybody resisted that technology being placed in the truck and that the electronic log. What it did, it leveled the playing field and cheaters weren't allowed. And when everybody could cheat on a paper log, and it gave rest to the driver. And then I'm telling you, it's hard at first. Change is difficult. But the technology that we've gotten through what we've done, I'll tell you, forward-facing cameras have benefited drivers, have exonerated them way more than it put them.
But we still see this thing. You're saying that it's just going to take time.
It is going to take time.
Like how much time? I mean, how many times does it take, Dave, when you're following too close and the computer's telling you, the driver manager's telling you, you probably know it yourself, yet you stay too close? I mean, because it only takes one time for that car in front of them or that car to put their brakes on for something bad to happen. I mean, how long does it going to take? I mean, a lot of companies have been doing this for years.
Yeah. I go back to human nature, and I first of all, that desire and want to change is necessary.
I got you. So for the drivers that continue to do that, and we're not talking about the exceptions. We know it's going to happen, right?
Absolutely.
I'm talking about and to make sure that we all understand, the drivers that we talk about that do that, we're talking about the ones that continually do it all. It's the same thing. They don't have the right attitude. As a safety professional, I mean, are we saying that there's no room for them in this industry if they can't follow that? These folks have been driving for years. Some of them have 5 million safe miles, and now we're going to tell them how to be safe when they've done 5 million miles, Dave? What do you say to that person?
I'm going to say look, I know every driver and person that's been out there 5 million miles. How many times has the hours of service rules changed and you've done everything you can to redo the way you do your driving? I mean, they've changed so many times in the last 20 years, our hours of service rules. The ordinance, the law has changed. And we've changed the way we drive, the way we think, and how we are out there on the road. It can be done. You can change. You can change. You do it all the time. The rule of law changes every quarter. It comes out, and something else comes out, and you modify the way you drive to fix that. I will tell you, and if you don't do that and you break the law, you don't drive in this industry anymore.
Let me tell you, and I'm going to go with you on this, is that what we've seen today, what we've seen different today than, say, from 8, 10, 15 years ago, is that in 2018, let's just call it 2019, 2018, we got electronic logs, right?
Correct.
For the first time, we were able to get data.
Yes.
It was the first time. So the changes
data.
we're going through, yeah.
Real
And you
data.
think about it, it hasn't been that long ago. But now we have all this data that measures the same thing. That now can measure the distance, can measure your speed. We're looking at it and we're saying, my gosh, look at the amount of accidents we've had based on real data, based on the speed, based on the space. We can take that data and make better decisions, and that's where we are right now.
Correct.
Before the electronic logs, to me, one of the greatest things that ever happened to this industry, there was no data. It was all fake. It was fiction.
It was pencils.
Yeah, it was just
With erasers
whatever
on
you
it.
wanted the story to say, it would say. With the electronic logs came real data. With the cameras, with technology, and if you're not aware of it right now, the industry we are in is a technology industry. It's a technology industry. You out there driving today, you're in a technology industry. The trucks you have are just like the cars. The data that you're giving back now from those trucks, it allows companies to measure data. And when you have data that you can measure, no longer are you ignorant to things. And when you act like you're ignorant, when you have all of this data and you don't do anything with it, what we've seen are juries that aren't real appreciative of it.
Agreed.
Giving out a lot of money, so now the companies are forced, and that's a good thing, to take this data and act upon it. You out there as a driver, you've got to trust that this data, its percentages, it's pretty dadgum good. It's accurate. It's going to make you safer out there. You, the dispatcher, you, the owner of a company, you've got to take that same data and do something, embrace it, welcome it, and use it to make your company safer. We'll be back in 30 seconds with Double Check Dale, talking safety, showing videos, talking a little bit of safety right here on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. You're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. BCB Live covers freight. Here we are now at 21% of record freight being rejected. News down in Texas. We're going to talk a little bit about this. We had another $1.5 million seizure. If ever there's a time to do a pre or post trip, it's if you're doing something wrong. Weather, traffic.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to some traffic and weather with Buckle Up Bob. You can kind of see where the visibility can be compromised a little bit. Again, right where that rain is.
And most importantly, safety. One of the things that we must do is make sure that safety is the number one thing that we focus on.
Going into an intersection yellow is not the way. That's to clear an intersection, not to enter an intersection.
Tune in weekdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can watch BCB Live through LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today and follow BCB Live.
Hey, welcome back to BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. You got Double Check Dale here. We're going to forego the weather because, like Rick said, it's just hot out there today. Hey, we're going to talk safety, and this week we're talking about, next week is National Safe Driver Week. And we've been talking about what the focus is, what the law enforcement is going to be focusing on, what actions are going to get you pulled over, and further involvement. You know, and today we're going to talk about improper lane changes. You know, almost 35,000 people are injured and almost 6,000 people die annually from unsafe lane changes. You know, that's really a preventable thing. You just have to make sure when you change that lane that you do it the proper way. You make sure you signal, make sure there's nobody in your blind spot. Only change one lane at a time. Don't do that double lane change. Own the lane before you move on over. You know, we see a lot of videos where we see people changing 2-3 lanes at once just to get to that exit, crossing those double lines. Those are all illegal actions. That's what the enforcement is going to be looking for when we talk about improper lane changes. Let's look at some videos, Boyd.
First video we got today is called "Is It Just a Habit?" Part 1.
Stop signs. You know, a lot of times I think it just becomes a habit to roll these stop signs, and we don't understand that it's our habit that we're doing it. And so by showing drivers and by reviewing them and drivers looking at this type of thing, they start saying, oh my goodness, yes I do. I did roll that stop sign. I've talked to drivers, no, I stopped for it, I stopped. No, you didn't after you see it. And so it's just a habit that we have to make them aware of. And then they have to make sure we coach them in the right direction, that stop means stop.
Stop means stop.
Next video we got is called "Too Close and Doing Nothing About It."
You know, that's what I like to say. I wish we had the things on it because, I mean, just look at how close we are. When we have a tractor trailer and we're really not doing anything about it, our speed stays the same, actually picks up a little bit from the beginning to the end. We have to recognize that in-cab coaching is so important. Listen to it. It's telling you the truth out there, folks. This is just too close. If you don't believe the in-cab coaching, I mean, just take a look at tractor trailer 75 foot long, and at one point we're both alongside of it with not the space in between it. 65 miles an hour, 100 feet per second or so. No time to react.
Yeah, we're about a half a second behind this truck in front of us right here. What we see right here, we have an orange sign up on the left as well that could mean construction up ahead. It could mean rough road. We're really not sure what that sign says, but here you go. This is the point. The driver of this truck if they have 5-6 million miles safe, and this is how they've been doing, they've never had an accident, what do you say to them to get them to realize that this is not where you want to be?
If they have 5 million, 6 miles, safe miles, Rick, and when you show them something like this, they go, oh my God, because I know they don't normally do this. They get caught in a situation, they get caught up in it because sooner or later, it's going to catch you. Sooner or later, there's going to be road debris or something. That truck's going to have to slam on its brake, and we're going to rear end them. They understand that, but they appreciate. Those drivers are the ones that appreciate this type of coaching and say, yeah, there's an area for me to improve on because I need to be focused. I need to be the safest driver I can be every day.
I honestly believe, and I think Dale's great in this and what he's saying, because the experienced driver can quickly identify this and understands that they're too close, especially when the video's played back. Now, in the moment, they may have a moment of distraction. They may have a moment where you're, and when we talk about distractions, the greatest distraction out there is that mental distraction, not necessarily the phone, not necessarily the food, but that mental distraction where you're not really focused on what you're doing. You're just running through the motions. And right here is necessary that you identify quickly and react quickly to this. And to your point, Rick, I think if they see this behavior, if they see this, and they're able to see this outside the box and not in the moment, they can identify this and maybe change their behavior.
Next video we got is called Situational Awareness and Big Picture.
And we talk about that, Smith system, big picture, situational awareness in this truck hauling this lumber, kind of does that little bit of weave because there's somebody out on the road, parked on the shoulder, and he has to move over a little bit. So we always have to have that big picture and situational awareness. What if? Because, if you have that big picture, you're going to see, hey, that's a wide load. Hey, there's somebody out over on the shoulder. This truck probably is going to have to slide over and move a little bit, have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and this happens more times than not when a big truck or a vehicle leaves its lane. And you've got to be prepared, genuinely prepared. You had the car coming up in the hammer lane to your left. There really wasn't a place to go because as you get squeezed here, you can see that car over there in the left lane to the bit. I will tell you that it's important to react accordingly, and just shooting by the truck is not the answer. Slowing down and being prepared or getting in a slower situation is the better way to react here. But these situations occur more times than not.
Absolutely.
I mean, vehicles leave their lane for whatever reason, because of distraction, because of something, because of an alligator in the road. I mean, or debris or whatever. People leave their lane for whatever reason and don't look at what's going on around them. And you've got to be genuinely prepared for these.
Yeah, it's actually one of the focuses for Safe Driver Week next week is the lane change thing. And this one would probably catch an officer's eye. What's going on with it?
Next video we got is called Is It Just a Habit Part 2.
It's again, and actually it's the same driver. I appreciate him sending these videos in, and this stuff. But same driver. And so you really start thinking, hey, this is just a habit for this person. He doesn't recognize it. So we call him, and you got to coach him. You got to get ahead of it and say, hey, you realize, a couple times in the same day, you had a rolling stop sign. Do you recognize that you're doing this? What can we do to help you get better about this, that you can raise your focus when we come up to a stop sign? Because it doesn't matter if anybody's coming or not. The law is the law, and we need to stop and get that good look.
So here's my thing, and Dave, you're back there dispatching 35, 40 trucks, whatever it is.
Okay.
I mean, do you really care about this? Seriously. I mean, you got service going on. I mean, are you going to talk to the driver, passionately? Does it even matter? Because you're looking at it, you say, well, there's nobody there. He wouldn't have gone as a dispatcher. I'm saying put yourself in their shoes.
Right.
They don't have the luxury to sit there and talk, for 30 minutes. Hey, well, what's going on, man? And if they don't, then what do we do as a company? That's all I'm saying is okay, Dale can call, or a safety manager can call this. What about the dispatcher, the driver manager? How do they do that?
Yeah, I think that's an important part, because I truly believe that's the relationship that's fundamental to the success of the driver anyway, is the one with their dispatcher, and developing that relationship. And the driver manager has to have that also that moment to say and understand how important this is. The driver manager has to believe this is important too.
Yeah, you know what? And you think about scorecards. I'm just thinking about things right now. You think about scorecards. Okay, Dale, you know, you're also a trucking, safety person, right? You do this for a living. Is there validation? Just tell me this. Is there a difference in a driver that has, say, a scorecard, a report card, whatever we want to call that, of 95 and higher? Are there less things you see on them versus the drivers that are, say, 70 and under?
Oh, huge difference on that.
Huge difference.
Huge difference on that.
So I'm going to just stop there. So for a trucking company, it's actually easier for me to see that, you know what, drivers that may be at 95% or higher, maybe those driver managers, those dispatchers can have 35, 40, 50 of them because they don't have any safety issues. But those with a score of whatever that is your company measures, say 70 and under, if that's a bad number, well, your dispatchers don't have the ability to be, 35 to 1 because they can't talk to them about it because there's a lot of coaching that has to happen in that. And those are the things that I'm saying we as trucking companies out there, we've got to find ways to do it different. No longer can we say, well, all dispatchers have 35 or 50 and they're all created. No, they're not.
They're not.
They're not.
They're really not. You got guys that have just joined the company. They don't know everything that
and
the guy
probably those drivers at 95 or higher, they're probably your seasoned drivers.
Absolutely.
They know everything. They don't need to be managed. They just need to be dispatched. They're going to let you know their system's always accurate.
Paperwork's always
Think about ways to do it different at your company. Next video.
We got 2 more videos. This next one's called Driver Gets It.
Here's one we're sort of looking a little bit about following distance and having outs. And driver had great following distance there, and as soon as he gets cut off, you can see that he immediately starts slowing down and recreating that following distance. So here's a driver that understands, I got to have that following distance. When somebody takes it away, I'm going to slide back. I'm going to let it happen.
Good job.
And our last video of the day is called Watch the Space.
This is a great one. I wish we had the space on here because although it doesn't appear to change, the distance between the truck and the car doesn't appear to change, but because we've slowed down so much, the space, the time between them has increased. We're almost 2 seconds at the end of this one. It's all about that speed and space.
No, it's amazing. You see that space, you're like, well, come on, man. You guys have been getting on to everybody else that have that kind of space. This person's going 32 miles an hour. The big difference in a big ability to stop at 32 versus 65.
Absolutely.
It's important that you understand that, and that's why you count. That's why you use use ways to figure out how far you are. Technology, the in-cab coaching. When you're driving 30, how close you can be to the vehicle in front of you. It's just 1,000. I mean, you don't need the same space.
Yeah, if you counted it out on that, he just did it because he went past that sign. It's 1,002. And so the space is there, even though it looks too close. And so that's why so many times we think we know what we're seeing, but we don't because of the different situations. That's what I love about this in-cab coaching and some of the metrics we see with it.
All right. That's the last video?
That's the last video.
Drive safe. Shut it down with the prayer.
Hey, dear Heavenly Father, we gather before you today to ask for your grace in all things. Father, also give us the opportunity to be better today, to be safer today, and to be more than we've ever been. Father, we also ask you to give us the courage to go out and do what needs to be done to protect those around us and protect ourselves. We ask also that you keep us safe in each and every moment. We ask all these things in your name. We pray. Amen.
Make today the safest day ever. Make it happen. Make that decision to decrease that speed, to increase that space. We'll see you tomorrow morning on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Be safe.